Greetings, Colorado. Thank you all so much for attending, for logging on, for spending some time with us now. We're delighted that you could all spend some time and join us. We know you're all webinared out at this time, but we're really happy that you could spend some time to talk about the online global programs. This is a very new program that we're starting up in Colorado, so we're very excited about it. So while the rest of you are still logging on, some people are still logging on, just a quick little introduction on who's who for today's webinar. So my name is Susanna Hardy, and I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. I'm really pleased to be joined by my colleague Joelle. Joelle Lazzarotto is Senior Online Marketing Manager at IBT Online, and she'll be talking to us today about the online marketing site. And we are really, really delighted and pleased to be joined by Nicole Gunkle, whom I'm sure many of you already know, the International Grant Manager for the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade. And Nicole is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the STEP grants, how they can apply to the online global program, and how basically a helping hand for Colorado companies for that. Then perhaps also just a quick mention of who we are as a company. IBT Online actually stands for International Business and Technologies Online. We've been around since 2002. We're 100% focused on online tools and delivering online tools for our company clients who are particularly looking to grow internationally. So what does that mean? It means we build and manage corporate websites and online marketing for companies who want to reach international markets. And we are really proud to be starting work as of 2021 with Colorado to bring something called the Online Global Programs to Colorado exporters to help you reach the markets. So what we're going to be talking about today is Nicole's going to mention briefly a little bit about sort of what the resources are for you, and what they have in house for the STEP grants, what that means, how to apply, and then we're going to talk to you a little bit about why we think you would benefit from online business development tools, and then we're going to talk about what those tools are. And those tools are, website localization. What is that? What are international websites? How do they work? How hard are they to build? That sort of thing, including also international e-commerce. We'll mention that briefly. And then my colleague Joelle is going to talk more about the international online marketing side and how that sort of, joins together with the websites. Then at the end, we've got some time for Q&A. Please do drop your questions into the chat box or the question box, whichever it is. And this is a good select, this isn't a huge webinar. This is a webinar for Colorado exporters only. It's an absolutely dedicated webinar. So, think of it as a resource for you. Use it and, take advantage of it. Ask us questions, reach out to us, and so on. So with that, I'm going to turn now to Nicole to talk a little bit about resources for Colorado exporters. Nicole.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction, Susanna. Hi, everyone. As Susanna mentioned, my name is Nicole Gunkle. I work with the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, also known as OEDIT for short. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of the export programs available for small businesses within the state. So our big export program is called STEP, the State Trade Expansion Program. And the goal of the program is to get your products and services into international markets. It is funded in part by the SBA, and it is to be used for international business development, international marketing, whatever you need to do in order to sell to your overseas clients. In the past, I think a lot of people associated this program with going to trade shows or going to a business meeting in a foreign country. And while that's still applicable, there's a lot of other things you can do right now while we're not traveling. And one of the biggest things is your website and getting your website up to speed. The SBA has just approved that the STEP grant can provide $10,000 to update your website, which is a good chunk to get you started. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. Please check out our website if you're curious about the program at all. It has the other things that you can use this for, translating materials, translating your website, any of the commercial service programs that you may have heard of. Those are all applicable under the STEP reimbursement grants. If you have more questions or want the direct links to the program, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to provide it or jump on a phone call to talk to you about this opportunity or others under the STEP program.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll be circling back because Nicole is also here for the duration of the webinar. So if you've got questions for Nicole, as I said, drop them into the chat box, and she's be happy to answer them. So we thought we'd start out actually by talking a little bit about sort of the general. Get my mouse to work, but once I do, we'll move screens. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about sort of what we, why we think that you could benefit from virtual tools, online tools, if you like. So we sort of, start with the why, as it were. And this is something, it reflects these sort of business priorities that we see today. We at our company we have meetings that we all sit together and we say, okay, what are our companies talking about? What are the uppermost in their minds? And throughout 2020, we were very struck by the fact that no matter what the sector, from service to advanced manufacturing to agriculture, they were all basically talking about the same four things. Again and again in 2020, naturally they were talking about looking after employees and costs and cash flow, maintaining supply chains, how to keep the links with existing distributors and so on. And one of the main things they were also talking about was how to generate sales, how to grow their top line, how to maintain or even grow their export businesses. And it's that fourth priority, generating sales, generating leads, growing your exports. That's where the online tools come in. That's where your website and your online marketing comes in. That's the priority. Why do you build a website? You build it in order to give information to generate leads and interest to promote your company. You build it to generate sales. So, and we thought we'd also start off with some big, big picture things. We took this, we're very grateful to Hootsuite. They always produce great stats. So October 2020, latest numbers that we look at for the online stats, 60% of the global population is online, and that grew by about 7.5% over 2020. So a huge growth. And they're not online just for a little tiny bit. They're online for nearly 7 hours a day. So nearly, 4.7 billion people are spending 7 hours a day online. And as I said, it saw a lot of growth in 2020. Internet users are up 7.5%. That's the equivalent of the population of the United States, 320 million people. And social media grew by 12.5%. That's 450 million people joined social media. So this is interesting. This is basically saying, the world is online. And if you're a small mid-cap company, this is good news. It's good news. You know where your prospects are and you know how to reach them. And it's within everybody's grasp. This is not any longer reserved just for very big companies. This is now within the reach of the small mid-cap companies too, which is what we focus in. So for our answer of, why do Colorado exporters need localized websites? Why do you need online tools to grow? For us, it's because the world is already online. And that's the best way to reach them. Anytime you want, anywhere you want, you can engage, find, and communicate and do business with your prospects. And I think also for us, 2020 was really hammering home the lesson that this is not going away. This new normal, is in a sense Well, it won't. It'll develop, but it's not. We're not going back. We're not going backwards. In fact, the online side is growing and continuing to grow. It's not actually, if you're looking for, online tools, virtual tools, it's not actually that complicated. They're basically two types. Let's just keep it simple. They're two types. They're websites, and they can come small, medium, large, e-commerce enabled, not mobile friendly, old fashioned, encrypted, however you want them to be. And there's online marketing. That's the communication part of it. Search engine marketing, social media marketing, whatever it is, that allows that website to sort of breathe and communicate with the rest of the world when it wants to. So you have those two things, and they're interconnected. One of the very, very first things you need to do when you're looking at international websites, is to figure out really your buyer persona and your buyer persona's journey. And this is something we talk about a lot from our side, because your buyer persona on your international markets may be quite different from your domestic buyer persona. And if it's online, it's all about the details. So you need to really figure out your international buyer persona, how they work, and what is their journey. In what way is your international buyer persona different from your domestic one? Could there be multiple buyer personas in your export markets? For example, are your distributors really buyer personas? How does your buyer persona find you? How do they interact and engage with you? And in what way are those buyer personas journeys, the buyer journeys, different in your international markets? I want to give you this little example. The screenshot on the right there comes from L'Oreal at a time in, like, I'd say April, May, when the COVID thing was quite high, beginning in the States. And L'Oreal really wanted to show its US client base that they were very much committed and to support stylists and salon partners during COVID-19 crisis. And so that was the image they were giving, and this big banner on the bottom saying, "We're here to support you." But if we looked at some of their other international websites, I mean, this screenshot you have now is Australia at the same time. And Australia is just coming out of the really, really horrendous fire season, which saw those devastating, horrendous fires in Australia. And people were, it wasn't so much COVID, it was more about climate change and things. So this is exactly the same time. L'Oreal knew that their buyer persona in Australia had a very different concern than their buyer persona. It's still recognizably L'Oreal, it's still the same color scheme, same client, same brand guidelines, just a different screenshot. That's all it took. And this third screenshot here, this is at the same time, again, sort of April, May, when L'Oreal, this is their Brazilian website, again, same brand guidelines, excuse me. But they knew that the Brazilians were very concerned with what was going on with COVID. And we're saying to the Brazilian people, we don't usually do hand sanitizers. We're now producing hand sanitizers, especially for those people in the favelas, so that we're here to care for you, buyer persona in Brazil. So that's an example of buyer persona and an international buyer persona and how it can differ in different markets. So I think that's quite an important part to realize from the start. Excuse me. So how we see that working out for you in Colorado is, for example, you would have your Colorado US website, and that can have search engine optimization around it, it can have social media around it, and so on. And then let's say you're really interested in Brazil, and you've got some good client base there, and so on. Well, if it's a good market, then it deserves its own website. And you can leverage that and say, we're going to grow our Brazilian base, expand it, add some social media, add some SEO to that if need be, and you've got a really good potential market in France. Same thing, it deserves its own localized market website. So those two websites float there, and they feed into your US website, and the brand guidelines are the same. Each have their own orbits, as it were, but they feed back into your Colorado one. But the Brazilian and the French websites have differences. First of all, they're in Brazilian Portuguese. They're localized differently. There's lots of different criteria that define and make them a Brazilian or a French website versus a US website. And I'll get on to that. And this is where really these online global programs come in. And as I said, we're very, very proud to start rolling out the Colorado online Google programs as of this month for this. And as I said, there's a lot of reasons why companies start having international websites. They talk about we want to reach new markets, we want to control our online presence and things like that. Over and over again, really what it comes down to is we want to grow our top line. We want to generate leads. We want to have increased brand recognition, help our in-market distributors, all of that. So those are some of the things that the benefits that we think the program brings you as a Colorado exporter. Now, before I dive down and talk about website localization and what that means, I thought I was going to do a quick little poll. I was going to select a little poll here to ask you about your company's, I guess really your company's ambitions, and you can click on several of these. How are you planning to grow your international business in 2021? Are you looking to go more in-market partners? Are you looking to engage more distributors, more agents, whatever those in-market partners are? Are you planning on trade shows, international trade shows? Will you be using online tools, whether that's websites, e-commerce, online marketing, or are you still thinking about it? I'm not quite sure. I'm going to give you a little heads up. All of you seem to have decided views. Nobody's still thinking about it. Nobody's still on the fence. The majority of you have already answered, so thank you very much. Still collecting a few more, but I would say only a tiny, tiny number of you, a very small minority, are looking at international trade shows. 100% of you are looking at using online tools like websites and e-commerce. And about 50% are looking at engaging in-market partners as well, international distributors. But 100% of you are looking at online tools. And I guess that just sort of proves our point. These are, we've somehow emerged into the digital age. So let's talk now about website localization. What is that? What defines an international website? And the question, you could turn it the other way around. Why can't you just use my Colorado website? If I take my Colorado website and I want to attract people in Japan and I stick some Japanese pages on my Colorado website, does that work? The answer is no. Search engines, and here I've taken Google, but there are lots of different search engines in the world. I mean, YouTube is a search engine. Search engines decide who is relevant to show a searcher according to the searcher's requests. So it's searcher centric. It is customer centric in that sense. So the person who counts is the person who searches, and Google will give them the replies that is most relevant to that searcher. So if I'm sitting in Japan, I'm your prospective buyer, and I'm typing into Google Japan, google.jp, I'll probably be typing in Japanese. Google will then say, okay, who's relevant for that person in Japanese? Well, probably a Japanese site only, hosted in Japan, with the right keywords in Japanese, with perhaps some case studies in Japanese, and so on and so on. There's a lot actually that goes into making a localized website. So I want you to think of search engines are localized, therefore your websites have to be localized. I'm going to give you some examples of the kind of things I mean now. One of the key things that you're going to have to get right are the keywords. So these differ not just between America and the UK or across different markets, but they differ quite substantially if you look at keywords for online. So here you have an example of Mexico and Spain. One of the biggest, a major word, and not a technical word, a major word, the word car, is significantly different in terms of the search results. So same search engines, Google in each case, same language, in each case it's Spanish, different keywords. Therefore, you're going to have different Google ad campaigns, a whole different sort of setup. In the case of Spain, for example, if you use the word auto, you're only going to reach about 9% of the people who even search for that word. So it's really not a good idea to use that. Whereas in Mexico, if you're using, you shouldn't be using the word coche, you should be using the word auto, because then at least you're going to be hopefully hooking into 73% of the people who are looking for something in cars. Okay, so that's an example of keywords. Now, here's an example of what those search results look like if you have the same keyword, same language, but nevertheless not necessarily relevant. So I was asking my colleague who sits in Grand Rapids, he has a dog that makes lots of noise during webinars, and I have a dog that makes lots of noise during webinars especially. So we both typed in squeakless dog toys. I'm sitting in the UK at the moment. He's sitting in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So he goes to google.com and he goes squeakless dog toys. He gets chewy.com, amazon.com, freedompullharness.com and things. I'm sitting in the UK. I go to google.co.uk. I type in squeakless dog toys. I get barksandbunnies.co.uk, timeforpause.co.uk, amazon.co.uk. Totally different results for something like that. That's the kind of thing. So if you are selling squeakless dog toys and you want to be in the UK, then you need to have a website that has the right buttons for Google UK to say that you're relevant to me here in the UK. We define localization by 10 criteria. Language is one of them, just one. The translation is just one of them. Having the right domain name, adapting the design, having the right regulatory compliance, hosting optimally. Those are all attributes to making sure that you have a website that is relevant in that market. And when you look at your website, one way of knowing whether your website is relevant or not is to see, for example, who's coming onto it, who's coming onto your website. So in this slide here, this is a screenshot of Google Analytics of a website that we built for a company in Australia. It's a US website, it's a US company, and they said we want to attract the Australians, and we want Australians to come to our website. So we built an Australian website. And you can see that the site is highly relevant for Australia. 90% of the people coming to that website are from Australia. And the next one, the next biggest one is New Zealand. Okay, it's a tiny bit relevant for New Zealanders. And after that, it falls right down to virtually nothing. So it's a website that is relevant for Australia. Okay, so that's what you should be getting. That's what a good website looks like in that sense. That's localized. We talked about the online global program for Colorado. The online global program consists of, we broke that up into sort of a series of options. And the first option we want to talk about really was the so-called option A. So, for example, if you said, okay, I want 2 markets. There are 2 markets, Brazil and France, or Saudi Arabia and China, whatever those international markets are. We'll give you 2 fully optimized, fully localized websites, but they have a very specific scope of work. But they're very functional, high functionality websites for those 2 markets. Alternatively, you say to us, in fact, it's a bit beyond that scope. I'd like a total redesign. Then that would be an option B. But option A and option B are both to build you international websites so that you can attract and go out and look and be understood and do business internationally. I'll go through some examples of the kind of things that companies build. So this example here is a company called ASG. They make very technical products for the aerospace and avionics industry. They had in-market partners, distributors in places like China, Mexico, and so on. And they wanted those distributors, they wanted to give them a really good sales tool. So the website is for the distributor, but owned obviously by ASG. And the website enabled the distributor to explain complex, difficult things to the prospective buyers. It also showed those prospective buyers, particularly in places like China, Brazil, that that ASG really cared about those markets, were willing to commit and commit to the longer term to those markets. And hence ASG then was able to do a very fast return on investment on those markets for that. And then they said, well, those ones worked so well, do another two. If you have an interest, you can in pursuing that, you can have a look at our website. There's quite a good video from Hugo from ASG talking about that. Another example of that option A or option B for you in Colorado would be, for example, Pullman Products, another U.S. company. This is a company that sells through lots of distributors across the world, and but they're in lots of different verticals. They sell to florists, they sell to art suppliers, they sell to schools, to butchers, all kinds of different verticals. And one thing that was frustrated them was that they had all these different, it was so complicated they wanted one place to federate all their information to all their various distributors. The other thing they wanted was have visibility on their end clients, because that way they could build up long-term brand recognition in their products. So they wanted long-term brand recognition, therefore to have visibility on who their end clients were, not just their distributors. So again, we built them websites, just the option A, starting off with 2 countries in Europe and then building out more and more. So you know, they make paper cutters, but they're now doing some very good international business, and they're now beginning to have real brand recognition going further. Again, if you'd like to have an interest there and pursue that, please go ahead and check out the video. I think I might launch another poll just to ask, you know, if any of you have an interest in pursuing this. If you'd like more information on the option A or the option B for Colorado, which would be, you know, the 2 localized, option A, the 2 localized markets for that, you know, and things, and that the cost of the option A, by the way, is $12,000. And Nicole said earlier that the STEP grant is up to $10,000 this year for websites. So, you know, you get 2 international websites, your outlay is $2,000. So I don't know of a better deal than that. Right. Thank you very, very much indeed. We will definitely be circling back to you. That's a very enthusiastic response. Very pleased with that. Thank you. Let's go on and talk a little bit now also about some of the other options and possible things that you'll be looking at. Definitely having a mouse problem today. There it is. We wanted to briefly talk also about e-commerce for e-commerce for as a choice. And again, this really depends. It's basically a website is what you need. Now, a lot of people associate e-commerce with B2C only. And for us, it's really, really important to say advanced manufacturing companies, you know, B2B companies need, these days, you need an e-commerce presence. And in fact, if you look at the stats, e-commerce on B2B is about 3 times the size of B2C. It's just that it's hard to track and it makes less headlines, but it is about 3 times the size of B2C. You know, if we look further down into it, when there's some research that shows, you know, what's the main channel for brand research for this, you know, for information on brands, it's search engines, you know, it's social networks, things like that. So it's not just for B2C. And then again, these stats, you know, 94% of B2B purchases are researched online before contacting a sales rep, and 74% of B2B buyers purchase 50% of their products online. So again, some big stats for you there on that, and worth remembering that if you are a B2B company, that it's not just about fashion and shoes. It's very much a B2B world too. Some of the big numbers, and again, we can, if you have an interest in e-commerce, we can drill down and have more questions sometime in that, or do a separate webinar. But just some of the very, very big numbers. Obviously, these numbers come pre-COVID. Everywhere is up between 30 and 50%, 30 and 50%. The USA is up 30% in just B2C e-commerce this year. So again, this is something that's not going back in the box. E-commerce has really come of age in 2020. If you're looking at general marketplaces, obviously Amazon is global and is the #1. But there's a lot of other platforms to choose from. So if you are looking at that, you might want to consider, if you're looking at Latin America, why not look at Mercado Libre? Obviously, if you're looking at China, don't look at Amazon, try Alibaba. And then Russia is last first, more than Amazon. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And if you want to look at the generalist marketplaces, there are other choices besides generalist marketplace. I just thought I'd show you that slide. One of the things that we do a lot of is when companies say we want their own e-commerce platform, which perhaps their international distributors can use as well. It can have a payment gateway or not. That doesn't matter. Some of the biggest ones, will just have like a WooCommerce plugin and then a Shopify, but and that's probably enough for most companies. I think there's a couple of non-negotiables there, which you really need to be careful of. And again, if you want we're happy to give you some. I mean, we're pretty agnostic. We don't mind, but there's some which don't work well on international markets. But the non-negotiables that are listed there, obviously, they have to have a complete tech stack, for example, mobile responsive design, and so on. But again, some of them are less good internationally than you would think. There is what we've called, I said, option A is for, and B is for localized websites. There's also an option E for e-commerce. Basically, we'll build you an e-commerce website in any international market, which will be fully enabled. We probably do it on Shopify and WooCommerce, but we have we do other platforms as well, depending on which market it is. There's a lot of different ones. There's an example here that I'm showing on the screen right now from a company called Vapor Pens. They wanted first to roll out in Brazil. They backed it up with marketing campaigns, and they're now rolling out in other markets and doing pretty well. So that's just an example of these sort of e-commerce websites that one could build these days. And again, this is funded from the STEP grants as well. The price for an e-commerce website obviously varies depending on how many SKUs you have. But we're able to do it anywhere in the world. And with that, I'm going to ask you another poll. You see Joelle laughing because she's about to go on to talk about international marketing. But if anybody would like, if anyone would like to have more interest on the e-commerce in particular, let us know. We can circle back to you, give you a lot of information, help you decide which platforms, yes or no, which kind of markets, and talk you through the program for that. And as I said, the STEP grants do apply for that as well. Thank you very much. That's a very enthusiastic response for that too, which is delightful, absolutely delightful. I'm going to close that poll and give you all a rest from me talking and get Joelle on board. Again, my mouse. Oh, here we go. To talk about international online marketing for Colorado exporters. Joelle.
That is great. Thank you very much, Susanna. And good morning, everyone. Lovely to be here. And really just wanted to, share some insights and just give you a bit of pointers of what we would look for in an international marketing campaign. So just really to start with some background, I want to go back to Hootsuite and some of the slides we were reviewing earlier with Susanna. So we said earlier that like 4.6 billion people around the world are now online. Well, over 4 billion of them are now using social media. So again, these are from Hootsuite, October 2020, so the latest results we have. The vast majority of them, or 99%, which is staggering, are using their mobile phones. So the average time spent on social media per day, because they can be super mobile, is a huge 2.5 hours. So thinking we're all working 2.5 hours spent on social media, on the internet, that's an awful lot of communicating going on. But what's really interesting for us here is that over 43% of internet users are actually using social media for work purposes. And all of this really is good news for companies as exporters. This means that you know exactly where your clients and your prospects are and what they're doing. So they're all online, they're all on social media, they're all communicating. So you can and you should use this. So online is no longer only for the typical B2C companies, it's for everyone these days. And on the next slides really is, we talk a lot about social media, but why do you need a social media strategy? Well, first of all, we think they would give you a great opportunity to expand your other marketing efforts. So your content that you've taken so long to generate and is so powerful has the chance to be seen by a wider audience. And if done correctly, the right audience as well across social media. Or you can also really help you build brand awareness. So with social media, you have the ability to bring your brand content directly to your customers, partners, and prospects. Now you can really be where your audience is. Social media is also one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audiences. It helps you attract buyers to your products and services, and it will give you the ability to directly have a conversation with those individuals at the time and place and their choosing. Social media really is leveling the playing field for businesses of all sizes. If you think, for example, let's say Click & Curl, which is a 10-person beauty company in the Midwest, a post of theirs can really be seen next to Dior, an international powerhouse with hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing budget. And that's crazy, but this would never happen in any other more traditional form of marketing. So something like that has never been seen. So social media has really kind of changed everything from a marketing standpoint. Here I just wanted to show you an example of how different buyer persona, which Susanna explained a little bit more earlier, how they interact with social media campaigns. So here's an example from a Facebook campaigns where we were promoting the same product using similar imageries and messaging, although of course keeping in mind to localization and staying relevant to our local audiences in Mexico and in the UK. So if we look at the results for the specific post for the UK, we had over 1,200 engagements and we were super pleased with it. But then when you look at Mexico, and we were blown away with over 20,000 engagement for the same post. So if we stopped here, you could infer that the campaign in Mexico worked much better than the one in the UK, right? Not necessarily. If we go a step further and we look at the full buyer's journey, here we get the fuller picture. My point here is you need to know each market specifically and how your buyer persona will react to your marketing, so then you can look at the number in several ways. For Mexico, for example, we know that the market engages easily. They are incredibly reactive and responsive, unlike maybe more of those FOSTI Brits. But if you look at the actual conversion, so that's the important bit for companies, really indicating how many users actually went on to ask for a quote or to actually purchase the process. The numbers are pretty similar. Here we're looking at the yellow and the greens. So we know from experience in this case that you need to get those levels of engagements in Mexico to get a good level of conversion or sales. Whereas in the UK, less engagement on social media doesn't necessarily mean lower sales. They might not like your post, but they might then click or go back to your website through a different browser and continue the purchase. So each market is specific, and you really need to take into account and understand the specific of the market that you are trying to enter or market within. Another very important aspect to consider when we're talking about social media, you need to choose which platforms are worth your resources. Try not to stretch yourself too thin, especially at the beginning. It's important to know where your buyer personas are and which social media platforms they like to use to engage with companies like yours. So here we've increased the map coverage to add more African countries, and as a result, Facebook appears stronger than ever. If you look at that blue sea of social media users there. So now Facebook is the leading social networks in 153 out of 167 countries, so 92% of the planet. And here we only had a couple of other contenders. But what's going on behind the scenes? So here we have looked at the runners-up, or the second social media in terms of ranking. And here the map shows a little bit of a different picture. So we can see out of 58 nations analyzed with similar web and Alexa, we can see Instagram is actually gaining traction as a runner-up social media, very big in Australia and in Latin America, as well as big parts of Europe. But also Twitter resisting in 7 territories and Reddit in 3. So really do your research and understand what platforms your audience is engaging on. And once you know where you want to be, then the next step would be to set your goals for your social media strategy. You want to make sure that your social strategy is aligned with your business objective and the rest of your marketing plan. This will also give you really the starting point to decide what you want to achieve and consequently how you're going to monitor this, or what metrics do you really focus on. As with your business goals, you want your social media goals to use, or to be smart, as we would say. So you want them to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And if we take social media here again as an example in this table, you'll see how within a singular platform, which is one part of your marketing strategy, I understand that. Let's say Facebook, for example, you can already tailor your activities to the goals and overall objectives of your business. So really just to summarize, best practices for online marketing, whether international or domestically, but international in this case, have a localized website to act as a local springboard, offer the local user experience that your users are really valuing. Know your audience, your buyer persona, and the buyer's journey is really what dictates where you are and what you post. Set your goals for your social media strategy. Choose which platforms are worth your resources before you get started. And then we'll see this in a moment. Answer all comments and mentions. We said social media is a fantastic place to communicate. People are there and then, they're on the mobile phone, they want to have that information. Make sure you engage with them. You've attracted them. Now keep the conversation going and be mindful of the power that a social media response, a social media comment, and a message sent at the right time can really have. Look, analyze, keep learning, and keep doing. As we said, it's important to set goals so you can really track how your social media strategy is performing, and it can really help you move forward and continue improving it. And the last one, don't stop. Results might not come in immediately. Social media can take some time, especially if you're only looking at it organically, but keep going, keep monitoring, and keep adjusting, and the results will come in. So Susanna's introduced a few of the options or the programs that OEDIT Online offers. So if we look at international online marketing, we have option Cs and option Ds. So we always suggest our companies to support their international and domestic actually websites with some sort of online marketing, whether it's done internally or with us. So, and then if you feel that you might need some help in this area and the free resources on our website aren't enough, then we have a dedicated team that will be there to help and really work with you and help you grow your social media, your organic, whatever is needed to really help you reach your business goal and your marketing goals. So option C and option D are 2 different programs depending on your needs and depending on what you're trying to achieve. And this really allow for the fastest and most cost-effective way to be found, understood, and easy to do business with using search engine marketing, social media marketing, reporting analytics, and you can even look at email marketing, content marketing, and something like HubSpot integration, for example. And just before I hand over to Susanna, getting conscious of time, I just wanted to show an example of a company. We have been working on a marketing program for a number of years now. So they have, they've gone online global. They have websites in Australia, France, India, Latin America, and the UK, covering Europe, and they're now planning to extend to other markets. So for them, we have designed and we are implementing and running localized marketing campaigns through social media and search engine optimization. And we've seen some of the goals and we've seen the best returns in increased sales across different markets, but also brand recognition, new distributor acquisition, and business growth in those target markets that they've decided to engage with us. I know I went through this a little bit quicker, but I hope it's provided some value. And absolutely, if you have any question at all, feel free to put it in the chat box and we'll pick them up at the Q&A at the end.
Thank you, Joelle. And guess what? Just before I cut off for Q&A, we're going to launch another poll. Just to ask, if again, if anyone wants more information on the online marketing side, again, these are backed by STEP grants, and it's part of the Colorado Online Global Program. If you want more information, let us know, and we'll loop back to you or send you information. There's a lot of resources also on our website that you can download for free. That's terrific. We will absolutely be getting back to you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now, and just before we sort of reach Q&A, just to sort of, I guess, for us, the takeaways for us, if nothing else, if we had 2 slides to give a takeaway, the first is basically to say, we think that online tools like websites, like online marketing, and whether those e-commerce enabled or not, are a great way for a small mid-cap company to go global, to reach out and to do business internationally. The world is absolutely online, and you can engage with them in the way that they want to these days. And this is a well-trodden path now. And we're so happy that this is now being offered to Colorado exporters as well. We also think that this is like the new online normal. That 2020 was sort of like a bit of a bridge or an accelerator for many of these trends. So for us, it's the best way, the most cost-effective way for a small mid-cap company to be found, be understood, do business globally. And again, just as a reminder, this Colorado Online Global Program is what it's called. You've got a lot of details on our website as well. There's a whole dedicated page that goes through the details of that. And if you asked to be contacted, we'll send you an email later on and ask what your concerns are, what your questions are, and give you any replies that we can. And with that, I'm going to turn over to open the floor to questions. If you have any questions, there's a couple that have come in. Actually, some of the first are for you, Nicole. So Nicole, just to start off with, one of the questions is how to start the process. Do I call you? I think she means OEDIT, or do I call IBT Online?
Yes,
Nicole?
either. You can call either of us. If you call me, we can talk about the STEP program broader. I can connect you directly. You can have the discussion with IBT Online, figure out what services you want to pursue. And once you know what services you're going to go after, that's when you're going to apply for the grant. So it won't be ahead of time. We want you to have that discussion with IBT Online to make sure you're picking the right packages, asking for the right amount of money, and then coming back to apply for the grant.
Okay. And related to that, well, a secondary question, I guess, for you that's come in is there a set number of companies that can apply? If so, how do you allocate the steps? Is it a first come, first serve basis?
Yes, it is first come, first serve. There is not a set number of companies because every company has different needs. Every company is going to ask for a different amount of money to do different activities. So, but it is first come, first serve through September.
Okay. And can you do the STEP grants more than once?
Yes, you can do them until you hit that 10,000 max.
I like it. Nicole, it just answers yes to everything. It's wonderful.
They were good questions.
So there you go. I guess a couple of just quickly for us. I guess one that I'll take, can you help us get the domain names for websites? We've had trouble in the past. The answer is yes. Yes, we know that there are many companies have problems getting domain names. We've got a lot of solutions and resourceful thinking over the years. Yes, we can help you get the domain names for that. Another question is, can I convert my localized website into an e-commerce enabled website down the line? And again, the answer is yes, but it would be really helpful if you tell us right from the start. If you tell us from the start, then we'll actually build it on a platform, which you just basically then have to turn on. If you have a website which is not built on something that transfers easily into an e-commerce site, it's basically going to be rebuilt. So tell us in the beginning, and then yes. Joelle, this one also for you, which is, does this mean that I have to have lots of different Facebook profiles? Joelle?
That is a very good question, and the answer, unfortunately, is not an easy yes in this case. Is it depends. It depends on your current potentially domestic social media presence and really what you want to achieve. So if you already have a good following, let's say on your US page from your Mexican audience, then it would make sense to continue and post localized content over there. Whereas if you're starting somewhere completely new and you really want to show them that you're dedicated and super focused in the region, then a localized Facebook page for Mexico or Latin America could be very beneficial. So this is one of the conversations we have very frequently at the beginning of the online marketing programs, where we really evaluate the pros and cons with you. And then if we decide to build it, then we're here to do that with you and for you.
Okay. There's a question about whether we develop e-commerce enabled apps. The answer is yes. For that, but there's an awful lot of apps out there already. We have a big internal motto for the company: do not reinvent a wheel. We're also shy of over-coding websites. Makes it very cumbersome to use, and our ambition is to get websites that are easily usable both by anybody who wants to upload content. If you say, I want to open up my website so that my distributor can upload a blog, and then you open it up and the code is just so overwhelming that it's just, you have to hire a nuclear physicist to get through it. That's not a good website. Make it clean. So yes, we do e-commerce enabled apps. Maybe a last question as well. I'm sort of reinterpreting the question is how do your distributors react? I'd say, the majority of companies that we work for, their route to market is via distributors. Their historic route to market has been via distributors. And the international websites are greeted with a huge amount of enthusiasm by the international distributors. They recognize that it's their tool. That being said, do not hand your website or your online marketing to your distributor. After all, they're not you, they're not your company. So don't give them your domain name. Don't let them do all your social media. Don't let them do your website. Your website is your online real estate. It has a strong value. It's important. It has an increasing value. So don't just hand it to a distributor who's not part of your company. I can't think of a time when we've delivered a website or online marketing where distributors been unhappy. Put it that way. They've been usually they get very engaged and very enthusiastic indeed when they start understanding that you're going to actually invest in a tool for them to help them sell internationally. So that's the distributor thing as well. I promised to get you all back to your desks in a reasonable time. So we've been just under the hour. I want to give a big shout out to Nicole. Colorado exporters look to Nicole for online solutions as well. She's going to be pushing this program, very enthusiastic about it, a big supporter of it, big supporter of online tools, of technology, of innovation, of thinking of new ways of doing business. A great asset to the development side of the Colorado OEDIT. I'll be able to say that fast one day. So a big shout out and thank you to Nicole and all of her team. Then as always, many thanks, Joelle, for your participation here.
Pleasure.
And most of all, thank you all Colorado companies for attending. I know it's not easy to carve out a moment for your day. Thank you all very much. We will be circling back to those who asked. And thank you again, and we hope to see you all soon. Hope to get out to Colorado when all this stuff is over and we can get back to actually seeing each other face to face. I look forward to that. In the meantime, I'll see you online. Be well, take care, stay safe, and see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.